Good afternoon. Welcome to the Pala Civil Times Daily News Analysis. Let's look at the important articles of the day. Government merges 36 schemes to float farm plan. Share of clean energy in electricity still below 30%. Government clamping down on dumping import surges. China cuts electricity emissions to record lows in 2025. Under scanner, tech snag hours before Air India crash if switch can cut off without pilot command. How climate change is fueling devastating wildfires in Europe. Israel's Netanyahu left with minority government as yet another key coalition partner quits. News in detail. Let's start with the first article. Government merges 36 schemes to float farm plan. The Union Cabinet on Wednesday approved the Prime Minister 𝗓𝗏𝗃𝗃 or PMDDKY to enhance agricultural productivity and increase adoption of sustainable agricultural practices across the country. The scheme was announced in the Union Budget for 2025-2026. A release said the scheme aims at augmenting post-harvest storage at the panchayat and block levels, improving irrigation facilities, and facilitating availability of long-term and short-term credit. 100 districts will be identified based on three key indicators of low productivity, low cropping intensity, and less credit disbursement. The scheme would benefit at least one district from each state. The number of districts in each state or union territory will be based on the share of net cropped area and operational holdings. However, a minimum of one district will be selected from each state. The scheme is modeled on the aspirational district program of the center. The government hopes that the scheme will result in higher productivity, value addition in agriculture and allied sectors, and local livelihood creation while increasing domestic production and achieving self-reliance. The scheme would approximately benefit 2 crore farmers, which is good for our economy. Moving on to the next news. Share of clean energy in electricity still below 30%. India may have achieved an important milestone of sourcing 50% of its total electric power capacity of about 484 gigawatts from non-fossil fuel sources, though publicly available data show that the share of clean energy in the electricity actually supplied is below 30%. India has achieved a landmark in its energy transition journey by reaching 50% of its installed electricity capacity from non-fossil fuel sources 5 years ahead of the target set under its nationally determined contributions to the Paris Agreement. In the earlier news, committees for effective planning of the scheme will be formed at district, state, and national levels. That is, for Prime Minister 𝗓𝗏𝗃𝗃𝗃, committees will be formed from the bottom level, like district, state, and nation level. So coming to the clean energy article, in 2014, the share of renewable energy sources, that is solar, wind, biomass, hydropower, that is small and large, and nuclear power, constituted about 30% of India's installed electricity capacity. As on June 30, 2025, as per the center, it rose to 50%. However, the share of electricity generated from these sources rose from 17% in 2014 to 28% in the April 2024 to May 2025 period. Experts say that despite the rise in clean energy, the slower increase in utilizing clean energy was due to the capacity utilization factor, a measure of how much available energy was usable. An increase in hybrid power projects that combine solar, wind, hydro, and storage elements to meet India's growing peak and round-the-clock power needs are the way forward, says a policy note from the Institute for Energy Economics and Financial Analysis. Government clamping down on dumping import surges. The Ministry of Commerce has begun using its various departments, such as the Directorate General of Foreign Trade, DGFT, and the Directorate General of Trade Remedies, DGTR, to clamp down on import searches and dumping in India owing to malpractice by India's trading partners. It has also begun coordinating with other ministries on this front. The Directorate General of Trade Remedies last month initiated anti-dumping investigations on 8 different product lines originating from a total of 12 countries or groupings. The DGFT also last month restricted the import of the alloys like palladium, rhodium, and iridium containing more than 1% of gold. According to sources, this was because the government found that importers were importing gold, which normally attracts a higher import duty, disguised as alloys of these metals, the import of which was free. What is dumping? Dumping refers to the practice of exporting goods to other countries, including to India, at prices well below their normal rate. The DGTR has launched such anti-dumping investigations on the import of several industrial chemicals from China, Taiwan, Kuwait, Malaysia, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Switzerland, and the European Union, as well as types of glass wool from Egypt and types of paper boards from Indonesia. China cuts electricity emissions to record low in 2025. Surging clean power supplies have allowed China's utilities to reduce emissions from electricity production to record lows during the opening half of 2025. Carbon dioxide emissions per kilowatt hour of electricity averaged 492 grams during the opening half of 2025 as per data. That was the first ever reading below 500 grams per kilowatt hour and is down from 514 grams per kilowatt hour during the same period in 2024 and 539 grams per kilowatt hour from January to June in 2023. China, along with India, is one of the largest emitters, as you all know, and majority of the cities in China and India are in the WHO's pollution list. The total is 60.5 million tons less than during the same months of 2024, which is an indication that some progress is being made against Beijing's goals of reducing energy sector pollution. However, the enduring economic drag caused by lingering property downturn, as well as the uncertainty surrounding tariffs charged by the United States on Chinese goods, is also impacting China's power needs and emission totals. The pace of construction in China has slowed sharply so far this decade, following a debt crisis among property developers, which in turn has chalked off demand for energy-intensive goods such as cement, piping, glass, and construction steel. The country's use of fossil fuels will remain subdued, which could set the stage for further reductions in power sector emissions. Under scanner, tech snag hours before Air India crash if switch can cut off without pilot command. Investigators probing the June 12 Air India plane crash are closely studying technical snags that cropped up in the electrical and software components of the aircraft, which could possibly have triggered uncommanded actions. On June 12, 2025, the aircraft crashed less than a minute after takeoff, killing 260 people, including 241 on board. In fact, just hours before takeoff from Ahmedabad to London on June 12, a pilot flying the same aircraft from Delhi to Ahmedabad noted in the technical log a stabilizer position transducer defect. So what is this defect? The stabilizer position transducer defect is essentially a sensor that controls aircraft pitch, the up and down movement of the nose, and transmits the data in electrical signals to the flight control system to ensure that responses to pilot input are accurate. The malfunction is a critical issue as it can trigger incorrect responses in flight control, including unintended fuel cutoff signal. The official said the flight data analysis would focus on the trail of errors as noted in technical logs to ascertain the health of the electric and software components of the aircraft. The investigators would delve into the history of technical fault or malfunction in the course of the aircraft's life. The probe agency is also corroborating the sequence of events with a statement of the lone witness in the case, 𝗖𝗶𝗃𝗏, the surviving passenger on seat 11A. How climate change is fueling devastating wildfires in Europe. Wildfires have scorched hotspots in several Mediterranean countries, including Spain and Greece. Wildfires have burned almost 227,000 hectares of land since the beginning of this year. Now, Europe has seen worst, particularly bad fire seasons in 2003 and 2017, but it's not yet clear if 2025 is going to overtake those years. Scientists say the Mediterranean region's hotter, drier summers put it at high risk of wildfires. Once fires start, plentiful dry vegetation and strong winds in the region can cause them to spread rapidly and burn out of control. Climate change exacerbates the risk of wildfires by creating hotter and drier background conditions. This has contributed to the fire season starting earlier in recent years in countries bordering the Mediterranean Sea. It has also made fires more intense in these countries. Greenhouse gas emissions, mainly from burning coal, oil, and gas, have heated the planet by about 1.3 degrees Celsius since pre-industrial times. Europe has warmed at twice the global average since the 1980s, according to the World Meteorological Organization. That warmer baseline means higher temperatures, which can be reached during heat waves, which with climate change is also making more frequent. With climate change making wildfires more frequent. While Southern Europe is expected to see normal rainfall patterns, the rest of the continent is expected to be drier than normal in August, potentially exacerbating further fire risk in other regions. Israel's Netanyahu left with minority government as yet another key coalition partner quits. See, Middle East is witnessing a turmoil. We have seen the Iran-Israel conflict and the raging war in Gaza. Now, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu suffered a major political blow on Wednesday with a key governing partner announcing it was quitting his coalition government, leaving him with a minority in parliament as the country faces a litany of challenges. Shas, an ultra-Orthodox party that has long served as kingmaker in Israeli politics, announced that it would bolt the government over disagreements surrounding a proposed law that would enshrine broad military draft exemptions for its constituents. Meanwhile, Israeli airstrikes landed in the heart of Damascus, hitting a Syrian Defense Ministry building, as clashes have raged for days in the southern Syrian city of 𝗬𝗏 between government forces and Druze armed groups. Israel has launched dozens of strikes targeting government troops and convoys, which it says are in support of the religious minority group, and has vowed to escalate its involvement in the nation of Syria. The Israeli political instability comes at a pivotal time for Israel, which is negotiating with Hamas on the terms for a US-backed ceasefire proposal for Gaza. With this, we come to the end of the session. Thank you. Have a nice day.